Hey everyone, I'm Jennifer Whitaker, and today I'm back for a sixth video in my series on the B.I.T.E model. Now, I've already talked about behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotion control. And I've already given an introduction to the B.I.T.E model and what it is to really give a foundation. So if you missed the first 5 videos, I do recommend you circle back and start at the beginning of this playlist and work your way through them. And today I'm going to segue into the structure of a destructive group or organization. And oftentimes these destructive groups and organizations are labeled as cults because most of us know what a cult means. When we hear the word, we know what comes to mind, but also it's important to remember that what comes to mind is kind of antiquated because we often think of groups like Charles Manson and the Manson family, or we'll think about Jim Jones and the People's Temple, or Heaven's Gate, or the Branch Davidians, or the Rajishis, or something like that. However, not all modern day cults look like that. And modern day cults include, sure, they still include the spiritual and religious cults, and there's still going to be a really teeny tiny sensationalized percentage that is satanic or black magic or something like that. But modern day cults and unhealthy groups and destructive groups can look a little bit different because nowadays we have political cults, we have therapy and self-help cults or human potential cults. Sometimes they're called LGATs, or large group awareness trainings, where there's somebody on stage taking you through a hypnosis or a guided meditation or guided imagery. MLMs fall under this category. There are doomsday cults. There are polygamist and polyamorous cults nowadays. There are racist cults, Eastern cults, New Age cults, extremist belief cults, one-on-one mini cults, which could be an abusive relationship where you might find yourself stuck in that cycle of abuse that I've talked about in a past video, or cults of personality, where you might have a celebrity figure where the cult revolves around a celebrity figure in a very specific theme or interest, like maybe theater or sports, or martial arts or dance or yoga, or even a specific modality or method or treatment option that, in the health and wellness community. So cults are everywhere. And it's important to start by talking about the structure of a destructive cult or a destructive group. And so that's where I'm going to begin today. But before I show you this, I want to welcome you to my channel. I'm Jennifer Whitaker, trauma specialist. And if you're coming back, welcome back. It's great to see you again. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so you don't miss any videos. And if you appreciate the information I'm sharing, please give me a thumbs up and feel free to comment and let me know what you think. All right, so let's go on and talk about the structure of a destructive group or a destructive cult. And so I'm going to show you this graphic. And again, this graphic comes from Dr. Steve Hassan. And you're going to see that it's a pyramid type structure. And so within a destructive group, the top leaders are going to be the ones who are in the know. That's who you look to for all the answers. This is who is most revered. And then the sub-leaders and the core devotees, whoever is closest. This is like the inner circle or the inner sanctum. Especially this orange group, the sub-leaders, are going to be trained in tactics that keep you manipulated and keep you busy, keep you sucked into the group. And the core devotees and the rank and file members are working their way up. Now, the further you get from the top, like when you get to the fringe members out here, there are things that happen up here, and there's knowledge that happens up here that is not known out here. So if you talk to a fringe member, they're going to say, oh, no, this isn't a cult. This is really healthy. We can leave at any time. None of that happens. But just remember, look at this type of structure and where are they in the structure? Are they a fringe member that hasn't been sucked in or worked their way up the pyramid yet and up the hierarchy? So that's important to remember, is that there really is a hierarchy, and who you talk to that's associated with the group, that's going to depending on where they are, what type of answer you're going to get to any questions that you might have about the group. Now, today I want to shift to the influence continuum. I don't want to spend too much time on the structure because, you can look that up and that's pretty much self-explanatory. But the influence continuum is another document that you can find on Dr. Steve Hassan's website, which is freedomofmind.com. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, because the influence continuum comes from the B.I.T.E model of, of behavior, information, thought, and emotional control. And as you look at the B.I.T.E model and you're assessing your relationships, remember I recommended doing this one relationship at a time. Look at your association, maybe with your partner, if you have some questions, whether it might be abusive or not. Look at your relationship, maybe with that certain family member that you always go round and round with, and it feels like a gaslight or crazy making. Like, go through the steps. Look at your association with a group, or a certain company, or even your job. And you can apply these tactics and start to discern for yourself, is this constructive and healthy, or is it destructive and unhealthy? And where does it fall on the continuum? I'm going to share my screen. And this is Dr. Hassan's website, the Influence Continuum, which is on the drop-down menu under education. And his website is freedomofmind.com. So on the influence continuum, we're going to look at individuals. So let's say that you're in a relationship with an individual. As you go through the different light items under B, I, T, and E on the B.I.T.E model, which is another page on the same website, is the individual in question encouraging you to be your authentic self? Is there unconditional love? Is there compassion and conscience and creativity and humor and free will and critical thinking that's encouraged? Or is there a false identity that you have to take on in order to make that relationship work? Do you have to pretend you're someone you're not? Do you have to do things with that person that you wouldn't normally do? Is the love conditional? You can only be part of my life if you do A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z. Is there othering? Is there us versus them, which plants the seeds of hate? And is there, again, doctrine and conscience are opposite ends of the spectrum. Doctrine is, no matter what, you have to follow these guidelines and you have to believe this. And conscience is, let's look at the individual situation. What is it that you need versus what is it that I think everybody needs? Because not everybody has the same needs. Is there an installation of solemnity, fear, and guilt, again, or does that, or are you encouraged to be creative and, playful and to bring humor into the relationship? And again, the free will and critical thinking, are you encouraged to critically think and do things of your own free will? Or do you have to ask permission? Do you have to be loyal? Do you have to be dependent and obedient? Because the more destructive the relationship, the more dependence you will experience, the more dependent you'll see yourself on that relationship or on that group. So it's a learned helplessness that they're instilling in you. Now, for leaders, if there's a group, let's look at the leader of the group. Is the leader psychologically healthy, or do they veer toward narcissism and psychopathic behavior? And if you're not sure what narcissistic and psychopathic behaviors and beliefs look like, I do recommend looking that up. You can get some really good guidelines. I've done some videos on this in the past. You can look at those videos, but go out and do just a little bit of research so you know the signs and symptoms to look for. One of the biggest signs of a narcissist or a psychopath is in the beginning, they're incredibly charming, incredibly charismatic. They're the life of the party. Everybody loves them. And it's almost like they have this gravitational pull to them where everybody is drawn to them. That's a red flag. Too much charm is an alarm. Does the leader know his own limits or her own limits, or is there this elitist and grandiose thinking or presentation? Like, I'm the best at everything I do. That's really into the destructive end when they get elite and grandiose. Does the leader empower individuals, or do they require dependence, which is that power hungry, power over type of leader? Is the leader trustworthy, or are they secretive and deceptive? And you can start to see this in some organizations where, you know, at this level, you're only allowed to know this much information, but you move up and you can get more. And so as you move up the levels, then the information is dripped into you to what you're allowed to know and what you're not. And is the leader accountable, or do they claim absolute authority? That is an important one to look at. Who holds that leader accountable? Who do they have to answer to? And where do the consequences come from? Because if there are no consequences, be very, very careful about trusting that person, and really look closely at the situation you're in. Now, let's come down and look at organizations, and this can go into relationships too. So for organizations and relationships, is there egalitarianism, or is there elitism? Is the abusive individual in the relationship, you know, always looking down and patronizing the other one, or is it more of a balanced egalitarian situation? Are there checks and balances, or is it authoritarian structure? Is it my way or the highway, and I set the rules for everybody in the group, everybody in the household, everybody does the same thing? Oh my gosh, I was in this situation once. I used to be a school teacher. It was like 100 years ago. And I had a principal that implemented the exact same discipline schedule for kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, as if yeah, anyway. But I'm just saying, is there an authoritarian structure where everybody has to live by the same exact rule, or are we looking at age appropriate, or developmentally appropriate, or individually appropriate solutions to different scenarios? Is there informed consent? Is somebody asking you, is this okay? Or is it deceptive and manipulative, where you get deceived into doing something, or manipulated or forced or coerced into doing something that you would not ordinarily do, or do of your own free will? Are you encouraged to be an individual and be diverse? Or is there an expectation that you just be a clone of everybody else? And right now, this type of cloning people versus individuality and diversity, this type of power structure is playing out on a massive political level right now. Is there a means to create an end, or does the end justify the means? Because if the end justifies the means, then that can get into some really culty beliefs, and the end justifies the means has been used or attempted to use in the past to justify some really horrible crimes, you know, like even as extreme as murder, for example. Is there an encouragement of growth, or does everything preserve the power of the organization or the leader or the, you know, the head of the group or the head of the CEO, whatever it is? Is it just a preservation of power, or is it a shared experience of growth for anyone who's there? And are you free to leave, or is there no legitimate reason to leave? So these are all things to think about, and I just wanted to show you how the influence continuum and the B.I.T.E model and the structure of destructive organizations and cults, how you can use these tools to assess different situations and scenarios that you might find yourself in. So you have actual tools that are based on past studies and past research, because there is research behind everything that's put into these tools, where you can assess with a little bit more objectivity. Am I being manipulated? Am I being controlled? Is this on the healthy end of the spectrum for me, or is this more on the destructive end of the spectrum for me? And if I decide that this is somewhere in the muddy middle and maybe leaning a little too far toward the destructive end for my comfort, what am I going to do about it? because these tools can guide you. And if you listen to them, they can help save you from ending up in power over situations where you're under somebody's thumb and you're being controlled and manipulated, because we don't want to see you be that marionette. All right, everyone, I hope you have found this information helpful. Please comment below, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up and share and subscribe if you found this helpful. And don't forget to hit that bell. And I will see you all next time, everyone. Happy self-discovery.